8-year-old bourbon, 111 proof at cask strength, a unique 44% rye in the mash bill of this bourbon. But the best part, only $65. What am I talking about? Stick around and find out. Thank you for joining today, Whiskey Friends. Let's kick off the show. Hello again, Whiskey Friends. I am quite excited to talk about the bourbon we're going to be talking about today. This was requested from our Patreon group to do a little spotlight on this bourbon, talk about the tasting notes, but it's also a time for us to show you what we're doing here as a channel, as we're going around the country, picking some great single barrels with a lot of great whiskey friends. So what we're going to be focused on today is Huling Station. Now, this is a single barrel sourced from Indiana from Old Dominick. Now, Old Dominick is coming out of Memphis, Tennessee. They are now releasing their own distillate as well. I will get into that story later. But one of the things I do like to highlight whenever we do a single barrel pick is, first off, why did we pick this brand? What made us excited about it? And in the end, what did it actually taste like? So for this with the Huling Station, we had this on our radar for really a couple of years now. Kelsey was getting some great single barrels. I was finding some great ones locally. And when it came to the bourbon, Huling Station had this unique MGP mash bill that is 52% corn, 44% rye, and only 4% malted barley. So that high rye content really caught our eye as compared to the typical MGP bourbon, which is 21% and 36%. So with that in mind, we reached out to Old Dominick and wanted to see if they had any more of these single barrels left and if they had them aged in Kelvin barrels, which is something that Kelsey is particularly obsessed with. Now, Old Dominick is in that transition period where they have their own distillate and they started releasing it. And what we were told at the time of this tasting back in May 2024 is that this was one of the final barrel picks that they were doing with the sourced MGP as they make that transition to their own stuff. Spoiler alert on their own stuff. It is fabulous and great job for Old Dominick successfully making that transition. They are now on our radar again in the future to do a single barrel pick with them, but this time for their own stuff. Now, the stats on this one, it's 8 years, 4 months old, 111 proof, and as mentioned, 44% rye bourbon. The other notable thing about this one is that we picked it in May of 2024, and it got to sit in a barrel for a few extra summer months. But at the tasting, we were head over heels on this cask. Honestly, we were head over heels about 3 of the samples that we had at that time, which made the decision pretty difficult, and we deliberated for quite a while. Now, this is a collaboration pick between Hello Again Whiskey Friends, Dusty Dan's Whiskey Reviews, Drifting Drams, and Jason over at the Mash and Drum. So quite the panel on this one, and we are now excited to bring it to you. As of recording, this will be dropping Friday, November 29th, first to our Patreon, but if any of it survives all the groups, we'll also put it out publicly if we can. But if you want a chance at what I'm about to describe, you got to join the Patreon to get first in line for these barrel picks. And the price on this one, oh my gosh, $65 for a single barrel MGP that's 8 years old. Pinch me sometimes. It's been such a great year. So let's get into this one. We'll go through the tasting notes, but I will say I am going to rave about this one. Not to be biased, we did pick the barrel, and being that we picked the barrel, obviously it's going to match our flavor profile. So I'm going to try to articulate what I'm experiencing. That way you know if it fits your profile. Cheers, everybody. Let's get into this thing. Gosh, every time I get into this thing, the oak on the nose, the sweet oak gets more and more predominant, and the rye actually fades into the background a little bit, which is crazy because it's 44% rye. Upon a neck pour, this thing was big and bold, but now it's like the sweet oak that's emerging first. Underneath that is a layer of berries, which is going to be a theme throughout this. This is probably the most berry flavor, berry forward flavored MGP that I think I've ever had. Now, the berries in themselves, I'd equate them to blueberries, raspberries, acai berries. Honestly, what it really reminds me of is they're these Brookstone chocolate covered raspberries and chocolate covered acai berries. It smells like those and it's going to taste like those too. Ah, getting a bit of that rye spice. Also get a little honey and ginger snap cookies, which is a profile that I typically get on MGP, and I'm glad to have it here alongside with those fruits. Let's go in for a taste. Oh, beautiful, oily, creamy mouthfeel. Man, another thing that sticks out to me on this one, particularly at the front of the palate, the 44% rye. I feel like it comes across bolder than just 111 proof, just 111 proof, but it does come off like something that's like 120, even batting 130. Done this one in a blind, and it was able to stand up to bourbons that were 20 proof points higher. That was a crazy point there. Now, flavor wise on the palate, we are going to be talking about it matching the nose for the most part. So, those chocolate covered blueberries, acai berries, raspberries, that's going to continue to play through. It is a berry bomb. Now, there are also shades of that honey, vanilla frosting, the sweet oak. So, there are a range of different flavors that are bright, mid, dark, all playing at once and dancing around beautifully. Let's get into the finish. When you get into the finish, it finishes in a few different spots. Since it is so oily, and what ends up happening is that high rye actually will travel along the sides of your tongue and light up the sides of your tongue and the back of your cheeks with the rye spice. Simultaneously, what you'll feel on the back of the palate is a range of flavors that we have discussed. The berries, the frosted icing, the honey, the ginger, all of those things occur, but they do have these nice transition points. By the end of it, you are left with the honey and the vanilla frosting, though. All right, let's get one more sip on this monster. Mm. The oak, too. 8 years. It's just a really, really lovely oak. Might even trick you that it's a little older, maybe even tipping towards that 10-year mark. So has everything that I do want in an MGP and everything I wanted out of this particular cast. This was the one I was looking forward to the most throughout the year. It was torturous waiting for this thing to release since we picked it back in May. So beautiful, beautiful whiskey. Once again, this will be released through Shared Pour. Our Patreons will get the links first on November 29th. So if you are listening to this potentially after that date, check to see if it's sold out or not. And if it is, tune in here to Hello Again, Whiskey Friends. We are going to keep coming out with single barrels. We're still collaborating with a whole bunch of people. We just did some picks with Big Vic. Dusty Dan's got a whole bunch lined up. We are really filling up the dance card for 2025. I thought 2024 was a banner year and everyone's just trying to outdo it. So it's going to be fun. Now, also, please check out Old Dominic, not just the Huling stations, but if you do see Huling stations in your area, know what you got. This is some really good whiskey and it's at a real affordable price. But what is also fantastic is Old Dominic's own distillate. So I am going to hype them up here. Hope to do a pick with them in 2025 for their own stuff. Now, when we were at the tasting, I don't know, shame on us, but they were like, hey, would you be interested in doing a barrel of our own distillate right now? We were like, No, we're just here for those Huling stations. That's what we came here for. But we never really tried their stuff or gave it a fair chance. So then they actually gifted us these bottles at the end of the tasting. This one's a 6-year, 121 proof cask strength. And when we cracked it open, when we got back, oh my gosh, we all fell in love with it. So don't sleep on these. These things also have a ton of potential, even though it's the same mash bill. It is a different profile. For me, the fruits on this one ran more in like the figs, raisin area. But oh my gosh, so good. So excited for Old Dominic and excited to add an Old Dominic barrel to our family of barrel picks. So thank you for joining today, Whiskey Friends. Let me know in the comments what you think of this. If you're in our Patreon, are you excited about this and are you going to pick it up? And if you have any other questions about this particular barrel, let me know in my comments. We'll get back at you. All right. We'll catch you on the next one. Goodbye, Whiskey Friends.